It's also okay to show up to a C race, a B race, and have an amazing day. And if you're just feeling it and you're feeling good, there's no reason not to go for it. Because sometimes you have an A race and you feel like crap. So you might want to do a different race and have low expectations going into it. And then you perform really well and you get a really good performance boost from it because you had a great day. And there's nothing wrong with that. You just gotta have your mindset around what these different goals look like, what these different races look like, and know that maybe one day it's going to show up and it's going to feel really good. That might motivate you to keep training for the big race. Or you might have a bad day and you might want to reevaluate what can we do better? Do I need more recovery? Do I want to jump into a different side race to try again?
Welcome to the Low Tide Boys, a Swimrun podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this is episode 308 of the show. We have another installment of our fan favorite series, Fika with Coach Liz. This is the 4th edition of this. Welcome to the show, Liz.
Hey guys, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, happy
Welcome
to have you
back.
back. We're going to get into a bunch of coaching questions and stuff like that, but we would be remiss to not give you an amazing congrats for winning the mixed category Otila Austin a few weeks ago. Not just, I mean, you're obviously an awesome athlete and an awesome swim runner, but 5 months postpartum, 6 months postpartum.
Yeah,
I
at the
mean,
time of
Wow.
the
just
race.
amazing,
Thank
amazing. So
you.
huge congrats on multiple levels, not just to make the comeback from having a child come out of your body. It's just incredible, absolutely incredible.
Thanks. It was really good to be out there, and I feel like I even kind of shocked myself a little bit with how I performed. So that was a good way to begin.
Yeah, we got to mix it
Yeah,
up
for
with you
sure.
out there a little bit too, which was always fun before you all ran off.
Yep.
Or swam off, ran and
Swam
swam off
off
on us.
something, both. Yeah. Yeah,
Hey, we
you
were
were
the
right
ones
there in
that,
our first chaotic swim that we had together. You were on
yeah.
some side of us, I think.
Yeah, and it was actually kind of funny because I usually lead the swims, and just being postpartum, my swim's not exactly where it used to be, and we thought it would be a good way to give myself a little bit of a break was to let Jacob lead. But we discussed the first swim I would still lead just so I could kind of set the pace for how I was feeling. And we dove in and Jacob actually like took off and I was like, well, hey, that's not what we discussed. So I kind of hung back for a little bit, but then you guys were starting to kind of make a move and I was like, oh no. And I just like went
We
around
can't let
and
this
caught
happen.
back up. Then I set the pace and we got out of the water and he was like, that was a good decision. So, but it was fun to be back out there with everyone.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
and the water levels were the swimming was it was like a new race because the water was so high and there wasn't much scrambling out and even some decent chop on a couple of those swims.
I actually was
So
thinking
yeah,
it
it was
was
fun.
rather pig swimmish on some of the swims. Like you really had to work for it. I could tell one side of my body was a little more sore than the other side because I was pushing hard
Mm,
on that side. The swimming was definitely way more challenging than years past, even though we didn't have to scramble as much. The race kind
yeah,
of equaled out itself in terms of duration, but the swim was definitely
yeah,
challenging.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And it stayed a little cooler, so we didn't get the total brutal Austin heat that sometimes
Hmm.
can happen in November, which is strange to say. But for a lot of folks in the US, that was the cap on the 2025 swim run season. Some of us still might have a marathon coming up or whatever, but most people are wrapped with their swim run season, which is always a great time to check in. What do you do with training when it comes to the end? Do you just sit on the couch and go into hibernation mode? Do you find something else to do to take up all your nervous energy and time? But we thought, hey, why not have Coach Liz on to help set us straight and guide us on the straight and narrow?
Yeah, and I feel like this is great time too because I'm having a lot of these conversations with some of my athletes and I'm myself even starting to think about like what does this look like for me? What does it look like for my athletes? And in particular, I feel like we had a conversation like this last year and we talked about different things that you can focus on during the off season, but I feel like more than ever, swim run has kind of evolved into this sport where swim runners are starting to look at this as a year round sport that they can continue to grow. And I feel like in years past, with like say triathletes and stuff like that, they always were very focused on the off season, and I felt like I didn't really see that in my swim runners. But now I feel like I'm seeing the changing, and the athletes are really wanting to starting to commit and find this like year-round package that works for them. And we'll talk about it a little bit more today, but like it doesn't have to always just be swimming and running. It can be other sports, but you're setting yourself up for your season for next year.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
great
I think
point.
before getting into it, like, just as a little bit of, I mean, again, we've all drank the Kool-Aid here on this panel. Isn't that awesome? Like, I consider myself a swim runner. Everything I do is
Yeah.
sort of oriented around the sport of swim run. Just as years past, I would consider myself a triathlete or a trail runner or whatever. And I think like more people who kind of fall in love with the sport are thinking about themselves in that way, which I think, on the tippy top, you see the times getting faster because people are actually training for swim run in a very specific way. But I think all the way down, when people really get captivated by the sport, they start finding ways, which, Liz, you can tell me, but it seems like the most natural of things. Like you're into it, you're like, all right, where can I find efficiencies? Where can I improve here? Where can I improve there? And with swim run, there's swimming and running, then there's transitions, then there's strength, but then there's also kind of like the mental side, like communication with your partner and leveling up kind of your attitude around these things. But I'm curious, like specifically for the off season, for people who consider themselves, as we do, like swim runners, once the season's over, how do you think about kind of taking inventory on how the season went and where you think there's room for improvement to do in the off season and building for the following season?
Yeah, so I think a lot of swim run athletes always want to work on their quote unquote limiters. So whether that's running speed or open water swim technique, things like that, like you want to identify kind of these key goals that you know you need help with, but you want to pull away from that exact goal and think about what can you do in the off season that's going to translate to that type of goal for the in season. So like I said, if open water sighting is like your skill that you need to work on and improve on, what can you do during the off season in the pool or even with the mental capacity or however you're going to help improve this technique? Like what can you do now that's going to help show that off in the spring and summer next year?
Yeah.
How do you kind of think about? I mean, I could see most athletes kind of coming like, "Oh, I wish I would have can run faster." This. How do you kind of work with athletes, or how do you take inventory yourself on sort of taking that kind of retrospective, like Chris said? Do you go kind of race by race, or you take your high races or your high moments, and then kind of your moments you wish could have went better, and try to find some like commonalities and some themes there?
Yeah, I think I want to take an inventory of the whole season and then take those inventory pieces and set those into goals. And so I break it into off-season goals and season goals. And so just because you are working on XYZ during the month of December, it doesn't mean that you can't have like your season goals for next year. So if you raced 4 races this past season and you felt like you executed them fairly well, but you needed to work on your nutrition and then you needed to work on your transitions, and you have those in the back of your head. These were the things that I'd like to execute better in the next season. So we'll break those into mini goals and then we'll backtrack it into December, January, February, which I'm considering your off season. It's not really off. It's like base season. You're setting the season goals for next year and you're continuing to work towards them. There is a few weeks where you're going to have some nice time off and it might just be some unstructured training or very light training, but it's not really off when we think of the terminology.
Not zero, not zero off.
Yeah.
Which some of us have made that mistake
I
before.
think it's okay to
Not
take
mistake.
it's
I've
okay
tried
to
that
take
approach before. I'll
a
say.
little bit of time off. Like everyone's body and needs some healing time plus the mental side of things. Like it's a long season, you got to just detox from it almost. But I think that continuing to move a little bit at a time, even if it's just a walk or some yoga, like that's going to help you feel better as you're getting back into training.
Yeah, and I think like depending on what your goals are for the following season, that time can actually be super important. I know
Hmm.
personally, after doing cycles in a row, I needed a break. I needed a break from coaching. I needed a break from everything. I was kind of burnt out just because the race
Intense.
demands so much respect that you can't be slacking off on the mental kind of staying locked in. Knowing that three of us and Jacob included, it's looking like we're going to be at Worlds this coming September. Like I'm trying to be really intentional this off season to just kind of like keep it breezy, keep it as
Hmm.
light as possible, knowing that I'm going to have this sort of like focus, partly based on my own anxieties and whatnot, but also understanding that this race is super hard. So it demands a certain amount of respect
Right.
and attention and training. It's almost like, yes, hindsight is 2020, but to your point, keeping it breezy, keeping it light is the type of thing that could actually prepare you for a good season by not like thinking you got to keep like the hammer down all the time.
Yeah. So I have like a theme for this year's off season. And my theme is consistent but repeatable. And so I want you to start March, the month of March, like fresh, but with a base, feeling strong. And that's what's going to keep you motivated to go into like your big ÖTILLÖ build up or whatever race you're focusing on. Like it's really going to set you up to like feel fresh, feel good, feel strong, and you're confident in yourself because you've taken this time to yourself, but also to like just set all the right things into place and not rush back into things. So even for myself, like I'm coming back as a postpartum athlete. So I'm like, do I take an off season? I just kind of took a long time off of training, but my body needs the fitness. And so this is where I'm looking at it as if I'm consistent, I don't focus on the big sessions or rushing back into training or like during the season, every Tuesday, I like to do a swim run. And that's just like, that's what I do. But during my little like December, January, February, if on a Tuesday I don't want to force a swim because I don't have time to get to the pool, that's okay. Like maybe I'll get the run in that day and we're going to call it a day because it's a consistent but repeatable like week by week thing. If it becomes too burdensome, like that extra swim session a week during the off season is stressing you, then that's not setting you up for something that's going to keep you mentally like ready to go to the pool multiple times in a row when the season really gets here.
Yeah, I like the consistency there. You're almost sort of setting the habit or establishing the habit in the off season about, hey, you're not doing your tempo workout or your VO2 max specific session, but you're getting out there this many times a week and kind of having some structure, but the intensity is just really like rolled back on it.
Hmm.
And obviously this is our second off season together. It's like you're adding kind of a little bit more of the workouts are fun, but hey, maybe you're going out on that run. It's not you're hiking the hills more or just chatting. It's more of a casual thing. You're doing more soul filling
Hmm.
activities as opposed
Right.
to
You shouldn't feel like
specific
you have
sharpening
to
type of things.
force anything. And granted, some athletes might really love to do that speed session during the off season. If that's in a place where that's good for them, then I'll prescribe that and that's great. But you should never feel like you're forcing it. I was even doing a swim session just this past week where like I was like, oh, I could do another round of this. But then I was like, really? Do I need to do that? I need to get home. So I just cut it where I was. I still got my swim session in. I just didn't feel the need to, like, I have to get this extra set in because I need the extra volume. Because I don't need the extra volume right now.
Right. Yeah, I found so my life situation's been interesting lately where I basically have to be home at 7 a.m., which kind of cuts into swim time. So I'm at the pool right when it opens, 10 minutes before it opens, actually. And I jump in as quickly as soon as possible to get it, knowing that I basically have 45 minutes. And, at first it was pretty frustrating because I was like, oh man, I can't get the yardage that I
Hmm.
typically need to get or whatever. But then it's just like, being realistic about it was like, well, hey, I turned into a pumpkin at 6:20 when I gotta get out of the pool to start getting ready to go home. And honestly, just kind of like accepting that reality became really freeing. It's like, yeah, I'm at the 2,000, 2,500 yard, kind of window. Like that's what I have to work with. So instead of kind of admonishing myself or just getting frustrated that I'm not getting the volume in, just kind of like this is what I got. So this is what
Right.
it's going to be. And hopefully it's
Yeah.
enough. And, obviously communicating with my partner, Chipper, he knows exactly what my sort of like workout limitations are just from a time perspective. And, it turned out to be a thing where by not kind of like beating myself up over it, turned into a thing where it's like, yeah, something's better than nothing. And
Hmm.
that something is going to be as much as I have available. And that's it. Right.
Yep.
And I found that to be almost therapeutic in a way these last couple of months where I just haven't been able to swim as much as I'd like in preparation for some of these races. But again, everything kind of worked out in the end. And I think part of that is, to your point, Liz, just having a good attitude around it more
Hmm.
than anything.
Being flexible, having a good mindset. You got 45 minutes, you jump in and you go. You can actually bang out like a really solid workout. And
Yeah.
Mhm.
you might swim 1,000 yards less than if you had time to just dilly-dally and whatever, but you went real hard and you got it done. Then you feel good. You feel good you got it done.
Yeah,
Still
exactly.
stacking
Yeah. And I,
bricks.
just like warm up the pool for Chipper, basically. He's like
Hmm.
rolling
Yes.
in at like 6:20. I'm like, I gotta go, dude. See you later.
Be getting as
Lane's
much
ready.
extra sleep as possible. Chris is on his warm down. I'm warming up. It's perfect. Nice. Okay. So coming to March, with the good base, but also feeling fresh and really kind of feeling a little bit of that energy and excitement from like an athletic perspective. Like, hey, I'm ready to get out there. I'm ready to, okay, I'm feeling good. I want to put some work in. I want to get those kind of tough, really tough sessions in, or I have maybe a late spring race to get to. That's kind of the mindset and the feeling from an athlete perspective that
Mhm.
you want your athletes to arrive at March 1st.
Yeah, and so like we said, it doesn't mean December, January, February is like doing nothing. When you're thinking about what's the purpose of my fitness right now, like what am I doing right now? You're getting to March where you have put in a significant amount of work to build your aerobic threshold. And so that aerobic threshold is the ability to run whatever mile pace that feels good at this certain effort and heart rate level. It's usually called zone 2 or so. And so you're pushing the envelope for how far up you can get aerobic zone 2 threshold to be, as how fast can that be? How good can it feel? For how long can you feel? And so a lot of athletes I have found, they really like to look at sessions like big fancy sessions, like I'm going to run 3 by 5 miles or something. You don't need to do these long efforts like that to build your threshold. It's actually found there's a lot of scientific evidence that these very short repetitions can help increase your VO2 max, and that's what's actually going to be increasing that aerobic threshold. And so I've talked, if you go back and listen to our podcast from last year, we talk a lot about neuromuscular work. And so that's going to be those short strides, repetitions, or a little bit of speed work in the pool, things like that. And it's just fine tuning your neuromuscular system to turn over, even though you're in this phase of like, I'm trying to build my aerobic component. And so these short repetitions can actually help push the ceiling on that. And so you might do a session of like 10 by 1 minute, and you just turning the legs over, but you're not really like tapping into a session that could make you feel really fatigued. And so that's actually very important during the off season because you want to keep building. You don't want to do a session that is going to set you back where you need multiple days of recovery. And so like a 10 by 1 minute session, you're going to go out there, you're going to execute it, you're going to get some good speed work, some good adaptations, and then the next day, boom, turn around, you're like, I can do a run and I feel okay. Whereas if you do like a 10-mile tempo run, you might be hurting a little bit and it's going to actually not allow you to be that consistent. And it doesn't mean that those types of runs aren't important. It's just right now, if you're looking at building your aerobic threshold, you want to focus a little bit more on those shorter neuromuscular things and build those up. So 10 by 1 might turn into 10 by 2 or 5 by 3 minutes or something where you just continue to grow the amount of volume and speed that you're running. You also want to look at aerobic long runs. Those are important for aerobic development. But during the off season, if a 90-minute long run is not something that works in your schedule, don't force it. There's nothing wrong with just doing a 70-minute long run. You don't have to do a 2-hour long run every single weekend during the off season unless that's something that brings you joy and you feel good, you have the time for it with your family. And then the final component of this whole aerobic based season is going to be that strength. And so
Mm.
getting into the gym. So I always tell my athletes, like, if you only have 20 or 30 minutes to get to the gym, but I give you a 90-minute run. I'd actually rather you run 70 minutes so that you can go to the gym for 20 minutes. The strength component is so important. And I think it's really important to try to make a dedicated effort of getting to the gym at least 2 times a week during the off season. Because if you're healthy going into March and April, you're going to be able to perform better because you put the time in the gym already.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, just from seeing Chip, just kind of like someone who cares about Chipper's athletic development and progress on all things, life and swim run, I've noticed since he's been working with you, like him being so much more diligent about doing strength and, before his runs, or after his swims or whatever, that has been, it just creates so much more resiliency in your ability to not get injured, but also dig deep when you need to, look good when you cross finish lines, all these things. And it's something that I wonder if you can speak to, Liz, just how important it is to do strength, whether you're an beginner in the swim run space
Mhm.
or like super experienced.
Yeah, and of course, like the strength training is not like the sexy session. Like nobody sees it. Of course, sometimes you can log it on Strava or whatever, but nobody knows what you're really doing. Um, I think that because swim run involves so much trail running, hills, paddle work, like this is all strength. And if you can't be strong, then like you're not going to perform well on race day. These races are very long and strenuous, and so when your body starts to fatigue, the first thing that's going to go is those little stabilizer muscles. And if you don't train them in the gym, then they're going to be gone real fast. And so,
Yeah.
even as me coming back as a postpartum athlete, of course, now I have a hormonal component to this. I recognized I have an aerobic base from years ago, but I need to be strong and make sure that my muscles can handle what's about to be given to me, the trail running and stuff at Austin. I made a dedicated effort to go to the gym 2 times a week, and I knew that I needed to give up, sacrifice my mileage on running so that I could get those strength training sessions in, and it paid off.
Yeah, I'll give one more proof point as well. Like Catalina, I definitely felt like I was coming back from an injury last year, and that was one thing that I actually could do. I couldn't run, I could swim, but I could definitely hit the gym and do that. I actually stronger than I have in previous years. Was able to compensate for the lack of miles that I had put in. I actually felt like a net positive
Mhm.
of an athlete, even though my mileage and maybe weekly time working out wasn't where it had been in previous years. I felt like a much stronger athlete because I had the strength that I had been diligent on for several months there. And
And that aids
happened
to
at
the like
Catalina.
mental capacity to be able to perform, like understanding where you put the work in and reminding yourself of that. Like, yeah, my mileage doesn't look like XYZ and so did all these long runs, but I did all this other work and I feel confident in my ability to perform even with less mileage.
Yeah, I mean, and this is a good kind of like global tip. It's like for all this stuff, you got to run your own race. Something we say
Hmm.
a lot, right? We also got to
Yeah.
do your own training, right? So if someone's like winning the Strava kudos game, like that might be great for that, but it might not actually be great for your race performance. So it's like, Strava in many ways can be insidious in that way. It's like someone's always doing like some totally epic and stuff like that, and you're just here like, doing your core workout like in your living room at lunch or whatever.
Hmm.
Don't try to compare yourself. I think especially if you're working with a coach, like that's one of the great reasons, one of the great benefits of having a coach who can just kind of keep you grounded and says like, hey, what's our program, what's our system that we're trying to develop here, not like what other people are doing.
Yeah, I call it like meet your body where it is. And you have
Yeah.
to
I
focus
like
on
that.
you, and your body's going to perform best when it's healthy and happy on race day.
Well said.
For sure.
Okay, so we're showing up to March. We're feeling good, ready to go. I think I may have already signed up for a March 50K, so we'll see how
Probably
that.
not too anxious, or maybe the anxiety is just starting to creep up about Attila
Mhm.
because you're
Yeah,
listening to the Low Tide Boys podcast and we're starting to get anxious about it. I don't
we're
know.
just it's going up. The anxiety there. So how do you think about March and sort of into what people probably are, especially for swim run? I think the first race happening in late May at Orcas
Mhm.
Island and here in the U.S. So relatively sort of late into the season, especially if you're formerly a triathlete and Oceanside's in like early April sometimes, and you can definitely find other triathlons earlier than that.
Yeah, so this is something I've thought about that's kind of new to this season because we're missing Lake James, like we had these April races, and I feel like maybe that helped motivate a lot of swim runners. And so I could see how this season going into off season, you might be like, wow, well, the season's not really starting for a while. But going along with all those season goals is all these other types of races and fitness opportunities that you can do to help prepare you for swim run season. So chipper, like you just said, a 50K, it doesn't have to be that long. It could just be a trail race. It could be an open water swim event. Like there's a lot of different little races that can help keep you motivated, can help check fitness, can just like provide you some good, consistent way to see how you're progressing, to stay focused, to have fun, because ultimately the sport is like we do this for fun. But I know that when I'm sitting down with my athletes right now to look at next season, they don't even have to be signed up for any races just yet because maybe you're still trying to decide which races you're going to do. But you kind of want to like almost work backwards and say, well, what else looks fun? Like maybe January we do a little 5K test just to go out, run a 5K, have some fun, but then see kind of where we're at. And then that might kickstart you into another like, oh, well, I went that fast then. I want to see if I can hold that for a 10K. And so you might build goals along the way, but you can have these like mini goals that are going to set you up for the in season goals. And so if your first race is a 50K or something in March, you actually want to still consider that like your season's beginning then. So even if you're coming out of your quote unquote base season ending in February or so, if you're actually going to be racing, you want to consider that like as your tip of the season. Granted, you could be using it as a building block for another opportunity. So, say for example, Orcas is in May, and maybe you're going to race Rockman, and it might be a good opportunity to get a nice big training day with some elevation and tag team those two races together. So you want to work backwards from that May date and say, okay, a 50K end of March, early April, that would be another like good building block for each of these races as they build in volume and elevation.
Liz,
Yeah.
how do you think about? I think it's a great way to kind of stay motivated if you have a race to have kind of these little side quests. And quote, like a 50K in Marin County is a hell of a side quest if you're going to call it
Yes, it
that.
is.
I know Chipper and I have found these side quests can be helpful, whether it's doing a long trail race because then you get to simulate a long day, but you have aid station support, or just mixing up the stimulus. To us, that always seems like a great way to test fitness and do all these things. But since it's not an A race, it allows you to kind of like work on some of the other stuff
Hmm.
while still thinking, okay, this helps you for your main quest. How do you think about like when athletes come to you and they're like, yeah, I want to do like X, Y, and Z? Like, how do you help evaluate whether it's actually a good side quest or
Hmm.
not,
Yeah.
somehow like self-destructive?
Yeah. So sometimes it depends on the athlete because I know so and so can hold themselves back, whereas I know the other person's probably going to dig a hole and it's going to be hard to get out of. But I think as
Yeah.
long as we have a good discussion of like, what's your primary reason to do this race and have a good understanding of like, well, we need to taper for this race, or we're actually going to take a really solid recovery week after that. Are you okay with that, given that we're still going to be training for this other race? We just really have to reset our expectations for each race and understand that each race is going to have their certain goals. And it's also okay to show up to a C race, a B race, and have an amazing day. And if you're just feeling it and you're feeling good, there's no reason not to go for it. Because sometimes you have an A race and you feel like crap. So you might want to do a different race and have low expectations going into it. And then you perform really well and you get a really good performance boost from it because you had a great day. And there's nothing wrong with that. You just gotta have your mindset around what these different goals look like, what these different races look like, and know that maybe one day it's going to show up and it's going to feel really good. That might motivate you to keep training for the big race. Or you might have a bad day and you might want to reevaluate what can we do better? Do I need more recovery? Do I want to jump into a different side race to try again?
Yeah.
And you don't even need a
kind of
race. If you're working with a coach, you guys can set little PR like type workouts where you're gonna just do like a 2 mile run test, see where the heart rate's at, or do a swim test in the pool, 10 by 100s at threshold, and see what the X pace is. You don't have to sign up for a race, and so sometimes there's even just little things you can do while you're doing your typical workout. Or I know during the
mm,
holidays, even sometimes there's that classical swim set of like 100 by 100, or if that's something that motivates you and it's fun, then like why not add that in as like a little big session, fitness booster, get to practice my fueling and have fun. If that's something you want to do, you'd work that into the training and have a day easy before it and then a day off afterwards and then you continue on.
Yeah, I
it's
love
good.
that. That's actually something I do kind of like whenever the mood strikes, there's this loop that I run around my house where there's this nice big hill. And it's like,
It's your
every
little
once in a
test.
while, I'll just be like, oh yeah, let me just charge up this thing. What's 400 feet of climbing? It's pretty challenging. I mean, Chipper, you and I've ran it a whole bunch of times. It's
Yeah,
just like, let me just see where I'm at. And that just even that stimulus can be really helpful in terms of just kind of like doing a systems check of where my overall fitness is. Again, not really
Hmm.
like judging myself if I have to take a walk break or my heart rate's like, my heart's in my throat or whatever. It's just more like, okay, this is where I'm at. And it's nice because you can always measure kind of like apples to apples on that same kind of like little stretch.
Yeah, and I
yeah.
would
I do
say
like the point. Go
even
ahead,
like with
Liz.
Chipper, I'm starting to learn some of your routes. And so if I know like,
Okay.
oh, you can do that one like 5 mile trail route and it has a couple hills and hit those hills hard. And, like if I start to learn my athletes' routes, we can go back and revisit them and say like, okay, on this route, this time we're going to do it this way.
Run around the Target parking lot 8 times again.
I mean, in the history of the Low Tide Boys, there's been a lot of running around
A
parking
lot of
lots,
targets. Yeah,
especially during COVID. Oh my God, it was a different Target parking lot, but we ran
yeah.
around that thing a lot.
Yeah. I remember one
Set
time
up
we
some
went
aid
in into
stations.
Strava and looked it up. Yeah. It was like how many local legend, points
Yeah,
that
how
we
many
scored on
laps?
this
It
thing.
was a
Yeah,
lot.
it
Oof.
was. It was quite a bit. Um, cool. So, okay, we're kind of into the season. I love the point about, hey, it doesn't need to be a half marathon or whatever kind of check-in race. It could be because I know sometimes early you're just like, oh, how's this season looking? I'm kind of a little anxious. I want to just test how everything's been going, or hey, I've been really consistent with the strength during the winter. I want to see where we're at. Like you're kind of excited, you're motivated there, and working with your coach and like, hey, do a 2 mile run test or let's reset your heart rate zones is certainly a good way to put some work in and kind of answer some of those questions that folks might have about themselves.
Yeah, I think you just want to think of it as a little bit less structured and more relaxed way of checking in on things. And like it doesn't have to be so like, oh my God, we're gonna race and like we gotta taper, we gotta do all the things right. Like sometimes you just go out
Yeah.
there and you're just gonna like do it on a whim. And so like actually in a lot of professional athlete pro cycling, things like that, like they don't know what their workouts are gonna be when they show up. They show up, they
Mm,
know they're probably going to be riding 3 to 5 hours or something, and that but they show up and the coach says, "Okay, this is what you're doing," and so it's that kind of like reverse psychology of like you can't amp yourself up for this workout. You just got to like go out and perform. You never know that like you might just have a good breakthrough workout by doing something like this on a whim.
I like that.
Yeah,
No,
I think
no expectations.
breakthrough workouts are interesting because I know, I've certainly have had them where it's like all of a sudden everything kind of clicks and, you drop a significant amount of time or whatever it is. I'm curious, like, how do you think about it? Seems to me those things are probably hard to engineer in training and just be like, do these things and then you'll have this breakthrough workout.
Hmm.
But like, when those happen as a coach, how do you then like harness that either into more motivation or even like changing the training plan afterwards once like, like Chipper comes back to is like, oh my God, I just like nailed that swim run
Hmm.
practice and just like was super easy, like what's next kind of thing. Like, how do you coach people up or iterate once people do have these kind of
For
like
sure.
jumps in fitness or jumps in performance?
I feel like a lot of the times it's twofold. Like the athlete feels it. Like sometimes I will reach out to the athlete, like, how did that workout go? But I won't say what I was thinking. 'Cause sometimes I'll look at the workout and I'll be like, oh, they nailed it, or oh man, they were dying on that workout. But I won't say it because I want the athlete to give me that feedback, because if they respond in a positive way that I felt great and I was hitting it, that kind of reinforces the like, I can give them the same encouragement, like I saw it too. And I think that really helps build the athletes up. From the coaching side, like I know I'm doing something right. I usually go back into the files and I start to look at what did we do the weeks leading up to it, the days leading into
Mm.
it. Sometimes if the workout is really like way out of the ballpark, I'll go back into the zones immediately and be like, did I have their zone correct? Double check and make sure I had the heart rates correct and the paces correct. If I see something that's like, wow, they really, really crushed it, let's check in and do another run test, just to make sure we're on the same page. Sometimes I'll even notice like a couple workouts consistently. It's like a string. And it's like once it hits, you'll get like 3 or 4 just really good days in a row. And that's when I know that the weeks prior is getting the adaptations are being made. And so that's like a huge, like, I'll try to remind the athlete that you're doing all the right things. Let's keep progressing and let's not jump the gun. Because you're having
Mm.
really good workouts this week, it doesn't mean we need to change your FTP on the bike just because you're nailing it. All of a sudden, you're feeling really good. That means that you took in all the training from the weeks before, and let's continue to build on that. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like checking in,
Yeah.
encouraging, and then just like reanalyzing, making sure we're still on the right path, or maybe updating a few workouts from here or there.
Yeah, and I guess also finding out if someone's just been like sandbagging.
Yeah.
Just like, surprise,
Where did
I
this
can
come
run
from?
6 minute pace.
Just busted it out.
I'm usually pretty excited if I start to see this happening in my athletes. And it's not something where you're going to turn the page and doing it. It's usually the athletes that are showing up weeks in and weeks out, and all of a sudden it just clicks and it's there. And the athlete usually feels it too, as well as the coach.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you made ÖTILLÖ this year. Where
Hmm.
are we at in the list progression? We're somewhere in the summer, the start of the summer, maybe. When does ÖTILLÖ training get serious? We start.
Yeah, so I generally tell my athletes June and July are going to be your heaviest, with July being the heaviest, mostly because if you live in the United States, you're probably going to be racing Casco Bay as like your tune-up race for Sweden, which
Mhm.
means the majority of your work needs to be done in July before Casco Bay. Is
We
the
also
tune-up.
highly recommend, if you're
Yes.
doing
Yes.
worlds, please try to put Casco Bay on your schedule. We know it's expensive. Maine's awesome that time of year, but just a little pro tip, if you're doing worlds, whether it's your first time or your 10th time, it's just such a great tune-up. It's the only thing that's even close to simulating the World
Hmm.
Champs course in the US.
Yeah.
And like it's just a huge confidence boost if your training's there, and also lets you know what you got to do for the next month or so if it's not
And it's
there.
the 10th year anniversary of Casco Bay as well.
Yeah.
Multiple reasons to
10th
want to go.
That
year
too.
Casco Bay, 20th year Attila World Champs.
I
So it'll
know.
be fun races all
Big
around.
anniversaries.
But yeah, so typically June and July, the highest months, which means if you're, especially if you're a new athlete with me, I want to see you putting in the work by April start date. And then obviously, as we're talking right now, December, January, February, if you can get started with a coach, the sooner the better, because they're going to learn you. They're going to make sure you're on the right track, and you're going to know going into this high volume season that you've put the work in and that you're probably going to be injury free. You can trust your body. You can really have fun with the training and move forward with it.
Liz, let me ask you a quick question about that. How long do you feel like you usually need in order to learn your athletes'
Hmm.
proclivities, for lack of a better word, in terms of their habits of attention, how responsive they are to coaching? Certainly, there's a lot of resistance to coaching. People have coaches because they feel like they need it, but they don't
Yep.
actually buy into the program. Like, how
Yeah.
long do you feel like you need? I mean, your point's well taken. If you're doing Attila, the sooner you get a coach, the better. But
Hmm.
like how as the coach, how long do you feel like you need to build a
Yeah.
rapport with your athletes?
In terms of just the training itself, I always say it takes about 3 to 4 weeks. I usually give my
Mm.
athletes a couple different types of sessions. One session may be very specific pace. where I'd say run 7 minute pace. Another session might just be like run hard. Another session might be like run by RPE or something. This is me seeing how the athlete is responding to the different types of the way I can verbalize a workout with them. I'll try this different methodology for 3 or 4 weeks, and then I'll see how the athlete's responding. And then the next set of phase of training, I can really like implement that. And so by then you're looking at almost 2 months with me. And then
Mhm.
obviously the longer I work with you, the more relationship I know in general, just because we start to really learn each other, ask each other questions, share things with each other, and support each other. So yeah, at least a minimum of 2 months.
Mhm.
And then, so from a coach perspective, you're saying, okay, let's say you say, oh, run 8 minute mile, but then the same workout, you could say, oh, run, moderate to hard sort of thing, and see like, hey, are we getting at that eight or RPE, 3.5? Like, are we getting to this thing? That's how you're kind of measuring it, is like which prescription gets sort of the outcome that you're looking for, essentially.
Right. Or like even, like we've said, maybe this athlete always digs a hole. So maybe they actually need that guidance of like, don't run faster than 7 minute pace. And so this is kind of like from a coaching perspective too, it can help me make sure that we're not overdoing it or just push them in the right direction, the right boundary, appropriate level of training that they need for the day. If you're working with me, and you probably already know this if you're my athlete, like I'm not a huge volume based coach. I really respect the body and I want to make sure that you're healthy and you're doing things appropriately. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to give you the volume. You just have to get it when your body's ready for it.
Yeah, like you almost have to like earn the volume. You said one thing there that just had me thinking on like it's so true, like giving people different workouts that kind of do the same thing just to kind of calibrate like what's actually going on. I mean, reminds me just a couple weeks ago, I got a babysitter and it's a new babysitter and I asked my son, it's like, were you well behaved? He was like, "Oh yeah, for sure." And I was like, "Uh-huh. So that do you think you could have behaved better?" And he was like, "Yeah, probably." Just kind of like like just like the most common statement in the world is like, I just caught you in an inconsistency. If this was court, you'd have
Yeah.
problems. As an attorney, I try not to deposition my kids or cross-examine my
It's good.
kids, but the point being, it's like, yeah, you might think, oh yeah, I can hold 8 minute pace, but as a coach, it's like, well, what does that mean? Like, are you sandbagging or was that the tippity top of what you can hold? So doing the workouts in a couple different modalities, triangulate almost like, okay, where is this athlete actually at?
Hmm.
Not just from what they're telling you, but what they can actually show you from the data, which is helpful. Just again, kind of a theme of this is to be just really realistic about setting appropriate goals for how you're going to try to perform on race day.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes those paces are good carrots as well. I know for
Hmm.
myself, I'm like, hey, I don't think I could do this. And then she'll be like, you can, I want to see this pace. And then I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, well, she thinks I could do it. Maybe I should give it a shot. And then it happens. And I'm like, well, this is why you listen to coach.
Yeah, and Liz is like, I told you so. I told you. No, I was gonna ask extremely self-serving questions about training for Otila because
Sure.
that's kind of like the side hustle of this show is like how do we get as prepared as possible? This is gonna be, I think, your third time, second or third time going back to Worlds.
Yeah, second.
Um, I'm curious, like, how are you thinking about your training differently going into this? And I'll give some background to that question. So Chipper and I have spent a lot of time thinking about, okay, how are we going to prepare specifically for Orna? The first year, we're just like, just do whatever
Let's
kind of
hang on.
thing. The second year, we're like, oh, it might be interesting to go in with like kind of like 50K, like ultra running fitness, which I
Hmm.
think in many ways it worked well for us despite me getting injured. Like we were faster on Orna than we were the year before. This year, Chipper and I both trained, or Chipper is currently training at the time of recording for CIM, and I just finished training for a marathon. And we've been thinking it's like, oh, maybe having like pretty decent like road marathon fitness might be something that would be a useful adaptation to have for Worlds. So less of having like sort of the ultra all day fitness, but just being able to bust out like a 3:30 like on a Tuesday, like
Hmm.
that type of fitness, given also the road running is like an interesting adaptation just to like build up the resiliency and stuff like that. Where in years past, it would be like 100% trails,
Yeah.
95% trail running kind of thing. So we've been thinking it's like, oh yeah, it might be interesting to just like make sure we're not neglecting like road mileage, just in
Hmm.
terms to like build in the pounding resiliency. With that background, I'm thinking, so you as a coach, like how are you thinking how you're going to evolve your training to kind of deal with the different demands on race day?
Right.
And then sub question, what do you think about our idea?
I mean, it's
I'm
a
gonna
good idea.
reverse my answer. Actually, I really like this thought because it's not really something that I've thought about, but I think that it comes up with the concept of speed equals strength. So, like I said,
Mm,
base season you focus on a lot of strength. So you're hitting the hills, things like that. But eventually as you go into your race season, you start to focus a little bit more on speed. And so that speed component is what's going to translate to Orno. Now, you also want to think of it as a fatigued based state. And so I do some runs called fatigue resistance. And this means that after you've done your hour or two, whatever, you're going to go hit the hills or do some pickups or something like that. So you're doing them in a fatigued state so that you're used to getting the body to respond even when it doesn't have much left in it, like when you're on Orno. So that's where I think your idea of hitting the road, hitting some speed workouts might actually benefit this. Coming from like my background and when I raced at Worlds, personally for me, I know that my limiter is still like technical terrain. So I will need to continue to work on the technical terrain aspect. But after experiencing worlds, for me and my husband, we both know transitions are going to be way more important than when we did it. Because when we did it, we were kind of just like going with the flow, taking our time. But we feel like we could really almost take an hour off our time just by getting our transitions crisp. And
mhm,
so
mhm.
we're looking at where next summer can we go to practice our transitions? Because we live somewhere where we don't really have open water access. And so we're starting to brainstorm like how can we practice these things? And so we're looking at potentially going up to Casco during the middle of the summer just to have like a little mini camp, like a big weekend where we can practice our transitions and run through things. When you're talking about races of this distance, you also want to look at sessions that can be big in general that don't beat you up as much. And so when I raced Worlds a couple of years ago, I was coming off of an injury and I really only got one 2 hour run session in, but I hit the bike a lot. So I did like 3 5 hour bike rides. And that fitness translated because I had no problems on Orno. Why else did I do well on Orno? Fueling. So is that another limiter in your race plan? You need to
Yeah.
practice fueling and taking in carbs and seeing how it affects your gut because that's ultimately going to get you to the finish line as well. This was actually one of my off-season goals too. It's called Fika. So fuel the fire. So when you're training, always show up with something in your stomach. Bring fuel if you're going for longer than 90 minutes. And even if you're not going for longer than 90 minutes, if you have a lot of intensity in that workout, don't be afraid to hit a gel. You're just going to help the workout and also help your recovery so that you can recover faster for the next workout. And I take this all with a grain of salt, knowing that like we're entering the holidays, we're entering the winter, like it's okay to go to your holiday party and have some treats, have a hot chocolate, have a beer, whatever like your little treat is. Like I say, do the right things mostly. And so if that means 90% of the time you're showing up for your daily workout and you're fueling it and you're getting some good sleep, you're doing the right things. And then we know we're only human. Like we're gonna have that 10% off where we're going to the party tonight, whatever. um, but
Yeah.
that's life. So like do the right things mostly, and you're gonna be setting yourself up for a really good season next year.
I
Yeah,
like that.
I
That's
heard, I forget. I mean, this has been said a lot. I forget where I first heard it, but it's like it's not what you eat between Thanksgiving and Christmas, is what you eat between Christmas and Thanksgiving. So like I think understand this holiday party situation. Like you don't need to be some sort of like no fun monk
monk.
on this stuff. But yeah, just be mindful of it. And I think to your point, certainly the biggest unlock for us since we started the show and had Andy Blow on episode 14 or something like that was this idea of like the person who can take the most gels has the best chance of winning. It's not the
Hmm.
person who takes the least gels, like somehow you win some prize. Your prize is probably bonking, and
Right.
that's not a prize that anyone really wants to win. So yeah, I think for us, it's like anything, for at least speaking for myself, if I'm doing anything that's even an hour, I'm bringing a gel just to practice taking a gel halfway through.
Yep.
Do I need it? Maybe, maybe not. Could I get
Right.
it through? Yeah, it's fine, but
Yeah.
I'm thinking this is just like another deposit in the gut training bank
Hmm.
and being recovered after the session so I can make breakfast for my kids when I get home bank or whatever. And kind of thinking about it that way, to me, it's been a huge unlock. Certainly we have a little bit of help because PFH has been supporting us for a long time. We get access to products, so we're not usually being really stingy on when we're taking gels or whatnot, but it is an investment. And I think that's, if you're going to invest in coaching, you're going to invest in gear, you're going to buy $250 shoes and $400 wetsuit, spend the $3 to work out on gels, friend.
Yeah. I think actually that was like a great fear of mine going into the world champs a few years ago was the fear of bonking. And that helped
Mhm.
motivate me to continue to eat just like all day long. I was like, don't skip an aid station, eat this, drink this. And like it helped. It paid off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, it's certainly good training to in that sort of December to March phase is good to get it in there. Maybe it is more adding in more real foods to kind of supplement some of that gel stuff. But yeah, you got to lay the foundation on the gut too.
I actually say that a cookie or a brownie or something is great training during the holidays, fuel training.
Great.
So have a
You
cookie,
heard it here,
go for
folks.
your run.
Yeah. Should put that on a t-shirt. Now, Liz, I want to ask you one more. I know we've just been peppering you with questions, so I'm sorry, not sorry kind of situation here. How do you feel about, so what, another thing that Chipper and I do a lot is kind of like these key non-negotiable sessions. So in the past, as we're building up, we'll do like our Sunday or Saturday long runs together,
Hmm.
and we're like, we're showing up non-negotiable, whatever the elements, whatever the conditions, rainy, cold, hot, whatever, like it just happens. How do you think about kind of like hardening in that way? Like same idea of like getting into cold water so you can kind of adapt to it and not have it be
Hmm.
this thing that's, that's kind of like looming over you. How do you think about sort of, hardening sessions, and how do you think about sort of sprinkling those in either naturally or otherwise in a training plan?
Yeah. So I think when you're racing these ultra long distances, those long sessions are very, very important. So don't get me wrong when I'm saying all this, but I think a lot of athletes tend to focus too much on them. And so maybe they're skipping sessions during the week, but then they always do their long run. And like, yeah, that's great, but you're still not really setting yourself up for this consistent, durable, resilient athlete because it's all the sessions that add up to make your race day and not just the one big session. And so I think it's great that you're getting your long run in. It's huge. That's very important to your race day, but it's not the only thing that's important. And sorry, my little girl's crying in the background.
It's like interview's over.
So yeah, long. You said 45 minutes.
Leading up to Worlds, and this is why racing Casco Bay, that's a great way, a non-negotiable. You're going to get a nice long session in. And even if that's your only long session, because you got so much going on, then put all your ball into that park and have a great day doing it. If you're someone who's very time pressed or injury prone, you should look at doing maybe every other weekend doing long sessions and
Mhm.
just knowing that that's okay and that's what's best for your body, being flexible, and that's going to get your body to the start line. If you have a little injury pop up during your build to Worlds, not fretting, not forcing the sessions and making the injury worse, just meeting your body where it's at. The nice thing about the swim run sessions are that swimming really does give your legs a break and reset you. So I think if you
Yeah.
are going through a little injury or the weather's terrible and you think a long run might hinder you, maybe look at doing that swim run session instead of the long run session. You can also play around with breaking the sessions up a little bit more. So a lot of athletes will do the long run and then their long swim run sessions back to back Saturday and Sunday because that's when we have time, which makes sense. But you could also look at like a midweek long run and then doing your big swim run session on the weekend just to give you a little bit more recovery in between.
Yeah. Noted. And this is
Sounds
why having a coach there to really help be your shepherd and guide you through all the things thrown at you during a training cycle, whether it is injury or work travel or family things or schedule fluctuations, like having someone that kind of has that 1,000-foot view on it and can help provide you those guardrails and steer you in the right way is, I personally find that to be one of the more valuable pieces of that.
Yeah,
Highly,
and
Yeah.
highly
I've certainly have
recommended.
appreciated the fitness that Chipper's showing up to races with. So,
Yes.
I'm very selfishly, I'm very happy with
Well,
Chipper's
that's
Yeah.
really
training
good.
and coaching.
I'll also
I'm happy with
add
it too, if anyone's
with
wondering.
like the world's build, um, say your key race is in September, or even if your key race is Casco, it's in August. A lot of people take summer vacation during the summer, and I get this question so much. Like, if I'm taking a week vacation with my family in July, is that going to derail my race? And like, no, it's not. Go have your vacation. You're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I can co-sign on that. So before we did Worlds, the first year I went on a family vacation in Hawaii. I think it was like a month before, maybe a month and a half before. It was, kind of a short thing, but it was so nice to just
Yeah.
like put the race kind of like, okay, well, I can't do anything about it, at Alani. So I'm just gonna spend time with my family, take it as a really opportunity to get some pre-race recovery.
Hmm.
And then I felt like that set me up to do the last month getting my mind right for the race. So yeah, definitely co-sign on that. And I
Nice.
think to your point, Liz, it's like this stuff is supposed to be enhancing our lives. Like we're not pros.
Right.
Like,
Right.
Yeah.
this is going
Not
to be
paying the
this huge
bills.
ordeal and this whole thing. You're going to get stressed out. It's going to ruin your personal, intimate relationships, affect your life at work and all this stuff. Like, then you have the balance kind of all screwed up and you should get that sorted out because this stuff is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to take you places. It's supposed to sort of expand what you thought was possible within yourself. And yeah, it's like kind of keeping that as the main thing seems to me like the best part of this all.
Yeah, exactly. Have fun with
Nice.
it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's adding to life for sure.
And it's such a
There.
wacky sport. I mean, that's the thing about swim run. Like it's like in many ways it's like this absurd thing. And when you do it with just Chipper and me, like, yeah, we kind of feel like idiots sometimes when people look at us, we're just like just running into the ocean and doing all sorts of stuff. Or ridiculous at the very least. But when we do it together, it's like, oh yeah, this is the thing, and it's super, super fun. The
I
fact
mean,
that it's always been fun for us is kind of like the key,
Yeah.
the reason we keep doing it.
that's what I love about it too, because like we can still have these goals, even if we're not like pro level racing. Like we're gonna go as fast as we can go, but we can still have
Yeah.
goals, we can still have fun, we can still be very serious about our racing, but it doesn't have to be like over the top.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well said. Well,
Yeah.
Liz, always great having a Fika with you. And if you're looking for any support on your athletic journey this year, we've confirmed Liz has you have a couple open slots for the
Couple
upcoming
spots,
season.
yes.
What's the best way for people to get in touch with you to snag those up?
You can either DM me on Instagram or I'll drop my email and you guys can share it in the podcast recording.
Yeah,
Cool.
we'll share all that in the show notes. And Liz, it's was so great to race with you again. During
Yeah.
the race, Chipper and I were talking about when we all did Whistler and we actually raced together for a couple of
Couple
hours. It
hours.
was super, super fun. And for us, we were saying, I was like, oh yeah, that's one of our best swim run memories is being able to like race with friends until you guys took off on us on that long run.
Yeah, we
Up
counted
until
that.
then, it was lovely.
It's always fun
And the
racing
toe
with
on
you
the
guys.
swim.
Yeah.
And the toe on the swim.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were telling that story in Whistler there, or the first year, really long, what was it, like a 6 or 7 mile run out to Green Lake?
Talented.
It's
Yeah.
like, oh, we were kind of starting there. And then it was like, okay, there they go. A little bit more space, a little bit more space. And it's like, all right, they're gone.
It's like,
They
well,
just,
we'll see him.
well,
We'll
that's
see him
how
at
it
the
goes.
finish.
We'll see him. Yeah, I'll see him at the end there. Liz, thanks again for coming on and happy holidays to you and, happy off season. And you can have a happier regular season with Coach Liz. That's
Thanks,
my
guys.
There you
endorsement.
go.
See ya.
Yeah. See ya.
That's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a wet rating or review, since that's the best way to help other people discover the show and the sport of swim run.
Check out our website, lowtideboys.com. That's boys with a Z, for swimrun resources, including gear guides, tips, how-to videos, and so much more. Make sure to check out our meme page at The Low Tide Boys on Instagram if you have any questions or suggestions for the show. Send us a DM or email us at lowtideboys@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Riding Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swim run and other activities.
Lots of activities.
Lots of activities.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
Then a run,
And then a swim,
then another run,
then another swim.
then run some more.
Just keep going.
Let's go.
And then stop at some point because,
And fuel. Don't forget to fuel.
Gotta fuel
Of
too.
course, yes.
And